Hello, so I made this which I thought might interest people. It's a very primitive survival spear with a Lee Enfield No4 or a Mark 4 bayonet put on the end, just a spike bayonet. And how this works is it's got a little cover on. I started whittling it, but it took too long, so I used a bench grinder to grind the end of the broom pole down to make it smaller to fit the bayonet, and then I put a screw through there. Unfortunately, because this isn't brilliant wood, that split it, but it still seems to be sturdy enough on there for now. Ideally I would change this probably to an oak pole at some point. Shed Ninja was saying on Mike's stream, Weapon Collector's stream, that oak curtain poles are actually really good for this sort of thing, so I might get one of those. There's a few options I've got. Some other people were saying that certain rake handles are really good and strong as well, so there are lots of options, but because when I bought this bayonet I didn't realise it wouldn't fit on the older Lee Enfields, I've put it on this, and then it should be good. So if you're interested in the measurements before I take the cover off, you can actually use it as a less lethal kind of hitting spear with this cover on. And then with the cover off you've got your proper bayonet spear. So let's take a measurement first. Now there is a step there, so I'll step onto the step to measure it. I imagine this will be between 3 and 4 foot sort of length, so let's see if I can trap the tape measure under it. There we go. Right, it is, where's the foot marker? Okay, it's just under 4 foot, it's about 3 foot and 9 inches from the bottom of the pole to the top of the pole. And if you want to see the length of it in total, I've just pulled that off, which wasn't great, but it is about 4 foot 6 inches, I think, something like that, with the bayonet if you go to the tip. So you've got a good long reach. If I got an even longer pole, you know, this would be even more impressive. So let's get this off. There you go, pig sticker. So as you can see, that is one of your classic spike bayonets. Quite nasty. I think these are banned now, aren't they, by the UN or one of these groups, because they cause unnecessary suffering if you stab somebody with it. You can see that's still coated in the sort of lardy cosmoline type stuff they use on these things. So, quite simple. It is literally a pole with that. I actually think this pole's slightly bent as well, which isn't brilliant, but it's probably because I just had it for absolutely ages, sitting doing nothing. It's probably soaked up wood a few, not soaked up wood, the wood's probably soaked up water a few times. But I only finally got around to it the other day, because I remembered to do it, to put the bayonet on it. So it looks a bit like one of those litter picker sticks, doesn't it, where they spear the litter. But yeah, this is quite good. I assume it'd be quite easy to handle, because obviously, although the spike is to one side, it should be fairly easy to predict where it's going. Obviously a proper spear where the spike is centralised would be a bit easier to use, but spears in general are very easy. It's very lightweight. Not really sure of the weight of it, to be honest. I haven't weighed it at all, but it's very manoeuvrable and easy to use. Obviously I'm in a close area here, so I'll go outside a bit, but as you can see, try not to slam it into the back of the door there. You have got obviously something very manoeuvrable, because it's essentially just a spear, man's oldest weapon. So what we're going to do now is I've got a couple of little things to stab with it. Obviously, as you expect, it should stab pretty effectively. So let's just demonstrate now that it does stab, and as I said, at some point I will put this on a better pole that will be a lot stronger and more secure, and at some point when I've got the money to justify it, I will probably buy a cold steel bill hook, because I love bill hooks or English bill pole arms, and what's not to love about having like a 6 foot halberd type thing. Right, as you can see down there, there's a milk carton and a butter carton, so let's try this out. Still isn't the widest sort of area I could possibly use. Right, got that one alright. Shoot, just spearing down it. Yeah, that'll work easily. Probably ought to do this on grass so I don't blunt the end, but yeah, that works. Right, so what I've got here is an old Daz washing powder box filled up with cardboard and bits of scrap paper to use as an archery stop. You can see there I've shot with my bow a few times. That wasn't a crossbow, that was the sort of £30, quite big bow, almost a longbow. Big recurve. But what I'm going to do now is see how good it is for spearing. the frame here, so I'll try and stand here. Box it flying. Made a bit of a dent. There we go, that time we got a penetration, but that's because it went past some of the paper on the inside. I mean, the middle bit's obviously designed to stop arrows and bolts travelling quite fast, so... yeah, it can do it, as you can see. Yeah, does it well enough. However, as you may be able to see, this has started coming looser here because the wood at the top has split a bit more, meaning that's not very secure now. So obviously what I'll have to do is definitely get a new pole to mount this on, one that's a bit more efficient. What Mike suggested in his video the other day was to basically get a longer pole and then mount it on one end, and then if I find it's too long, cut little bits off the end until it's the right length, which is obviously the way to go, I think, rather than getting a short pole and wishing I had a longer spear. There you go. In theory this should work absolutely fine, but as said, this pine isn't really good enough, especially because once you've shaved it down to get, you know, enough room to fit the bayonet, you've not got much wood there to actually act properly. On proper spears what they have is a hole going through there, then you have like the kind of rivet or whatever through there to hold it in. On this that's not the case. I could glue it on, but I don't really want to do that. But in theory this should work very well. It's obviously just going to be a case now of mounting it on a better pole. But yeah, making survival spears is quite easy. Another thing you can do with knives and things like that on these is put the knife on one side and then use cable ties to actually put them on, or like a load of electrical tape if you want a really quick primitive survival spear. But something like this should work well as and when I get a good pole to mount it on.